All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this LinkedIn live call. My name is Ilya Hadi. I specialize in AI and productivity, and this is season 1, episode 6 of my podcast series. I'd like to introduce to my awesome guest, Albano. He's the CEO at Alza and specializes in coaching for tech professionals. And this call will focus on his journey and his expertise. And so, Albano, great to see you again. Just if you can just provide a quick introduction to the audience, and
Yeah,
this event is recorded, so anybody can look at it afterwards as well.
perfect. My question real quick before I jump into that is why am I episode number 6 and why didn't I get the call for episode number 1? Um,
Oh, well, I think I did ask you.
yeah,
You're just super busy. That's
awkward, awkward. We'll talk about it after. No, yeah, it's all good, man. Good to be here and good to see you again. Yeah, quick kind of rundown and intro. I usually start off my career in recruitment, mainly financial services, so focused on kind of the big banks, hedge funds, asset management firms, things like that. A lot of learning really quick on like what Fortune 500 companies look like, and kind of massive scale recruitment looks like. I was there for about a year and enjoyed it, did well, except for the fact that like I didn't really love the nature and the culture of recruitment firms, specifically, especially like agency recruiting. So I moved the complete opposite of the spectrum, and I joined Teach for America, which is a nonprofit organization focused on specifically in schools that are generally what they call Title One, which is like low proficiency scores, low socioeconomic neighborhoods, and things like that. It's kind of like being the Peace Corps for 2 years, but you are essentially just being educated for 2 years. So I taught pre-algebra to 7th and 8th graders, which no one cared about, including myself sometimes, and very hard, very difficult environment. And in my first year, we had about a 36% attrition rate of teachers, which is nothing new to anybody who's an educator or knows an educator, which is like an insane problem with the educational system in America. But that inspired me for like, it was the moment that was pivotal to me in terms of getting into tech, at least adjacent to it. So I thought if I had this problem and I wanted to quit every single month, that I didn't have the feedback systems, I didn't have any loops, I didn't have any mentorship, I didn't have any guidance out of like journalized PD, is there a better way? And I went to build my very first company, which is called Tier Social. And the idea was that it was a peer-to-peer learning platform for educators, right? Trying to solve my own issue, not sell to schools on a B2B play, just quite literally the trenches of B2C. Because I just wanted to avoid a 9-month sales cycle, basically. And I was like, what can I just do in B2C, like subscription-based model, whatever the case. No idea what I was doing, though, but really kind of the best experience I could have asked for in terms of bootstrapping while teaching at the same time. Fast forward 2 years later, a couple of LOIs, called partnerships. We got very lucky, ended up essentially selling the IP and exiting the company. Eventually got involved into a different vehicle of mentorship, and this was career coaching. I used to joke and tell my wife that like I wish I had a job that I could talk for a living, because I talk now like this. And one day I got it, and I joined a career coaching agency, if you will, job search strategy place, whatever you want to call it, that had done Y Combinator. They were looking to raise a Series A, company called Pathrise, which a lot of people are familiar with at this point. And I essentially joined up as a career coach. I just built a product myself. So I thought, hey, let me join the kind of product strategy and operations track, what they call PSO. And that was really the first foray of me getting, again, involved in the work of coaching people and trying to help them get jobs, which is where you and I met, buddy. And we, essentially, you work with people day in, day out. And there's a lot about the model that seemingly worked initially, and there's a lot that didn't. But again, it gave me a sense of experience that really helped people get really great jobs, negotiate massive salaries. And I realized, hey, you know what? I started one company. Why don't I start another? So 3 years ago, more or less, I started Alza, and Alza really was just hands-on career coaching, one-on-one, and kept it intimate, kept it small on purpose, because I knew what it was like to build a conveyor belt of clientele. Like, it was just too much to handle. Sometimes 40 hours a week, 50 hours, 60 hours a week, and I want to do something a bit more hands-on, a bit more personalized to the person, and I'll do that. So anyway, we built out this agency, what we're going to call it, business, in the first 18 months.
Question before we step into Alza, so you mentioned a little bit about the Peace Corps, right? That was like like you did that, and my older brother was actually in the Peace Corps as well, and in Mozambique, he was teaching English, but was that like a little bit of your like origin story of kind of what because you taught, you said a lot of good bits quite quickly. Was that like the transformation moment where you felt like, oh, I really want to be into the coaching or teaching area, education area?
Sure, I think it's a good question. Yeah, look, I got involved with Teach for America because in a very
Teach for America, yeah,
similar way, the students that I was teaching really reminded me of myself. Like I also grew up in a very low socioeconomic, not financially secure household and area, especially when I moved to the U.S. As a kid. So, getting an opportunity to kind of be part of an organization where I could do that kind of work hands-on, that was literally the only thing that kind of drove me at 25 years old, right? And seeing firsthand on like the systematic disadvantages, and I don't mean that from like a macro level. I mean quite literally in the classroom of like you're working 70 hours a week, including a Saturday, because your lesson planning, the lesson plans will never see the light of day, right?
Mhm.
Or there's so many lagging technological deficiencies in the classrooms and the school as a whole, and like procedurally things are just they could be so much better, and the emphasis of where some of these like prioritizations are placed as administrators at a school, the students, like these are really really I got to see firsthand, and things that really formed my own kind of drive around like how do I essentially affect change, right? And like is confining in a way, and our hands are tied with like what I can do in 45 minutes instead of just delivering, content and education on a specific subject that maybe 30% are not even listening to. What's my next vehicle, right? So like even with recruitment is the exact same thing. Like I really enjoy it because I get to work with people. That's always been my thing, and it's something you discover I think over time. But I didn't love recruitment because I would get things from my supervisors, things like if someone says the word visa, hang up on them. If someone has believe it, it's some of the worst things. It's funny, it happens early in my career, right? Not for every, it's not all recruiters are like that, of course. There's some really great people out there. We don't generalize, but I've seen some of the worst people I think ever in like in an office together. I don't know where that comes from or how the culture was built or just luck of the draw in a sense, but like, if you have somebody with a specific kind of name, right, that we immediately can recognize that they're not from the U.S., like maybe not, right? If someone is attended Baruch College versus Columbia, let's give Columbia a call, even though Baruch is just as qualified. If someone, you look at their profile picture, and this is, we can talk about this forever, but like, I had an assignment that I had to find somebody for an investor relations role at one point, and my boss literally said, yeah, go find some people. And I did on LinkedIn. It's early days now, a decade plus ago. And he said, great, eliminate all the men.
Okay.
Yeah. And it said, okay, here's all the women. Eliminate the rest of these people because they're not, and I quote, hot enough. So when you hear things like that and you see things like that in practice, and like, exactly how broken some of the hiring cycles really are. And if you ask me then, if I started a company in career coaching or whatever the case, like I don't even know what the hell that was. I don't even know it was a real job.
Right.
You kidding? But you kind of relate these things early on, and then they stay with you. And then when I got to TFA, I was like, it's not that, but I get a chance. Like again, push for that kind of mentorship, advising, consult, whatever it is. Right? You're essentially coaching and through teaching, except the stakeholders are different. Right? You've got 13-year-olds versus. And then getting the opportunity to jump into career coaching and being like, wait a minute, this is drastically different than teaching a 12-year-old math, but a lot of the elements will remain, right? People need accountability, they need action, they need. So it's been an interesting kind of like journey, but I think the theme has always remained the same. And now building my own business, it's been the best. It's been the worst, but also the best. Because we can mold it any way that we want, right?
So let's talk a little bit about that. Well, let's talk about Pathrise, right? So that's where I met you. I was actually one of your mentees. You were my mentor, and at that time I was looking for jobs. That was around the pandemic, and like that program was interesting, but the best thing that I got out of the program was, really your mentorship, and you really did help me. You helped me get a job offer with Airbnb as like a technical program manager, and it would just whenever I had sessions with you, I always enjoyed them because you were insightful, yes, but you were just like entertaining too, in a definitely good way, because like a lot of things that you, especially in tech, can be quite boring, like, and so you made it interesting, and
I appreciate that.
And that was like my first time getting like job interview coaching. Like before that, I was doing it on my own, and yeah, that from the Pathrise experience, that was the greatest thing coming out of that was working with you, and then we continued to stay in touch, and now coming to So like with Pathrise, I guess you took some of the learnings, right, that you had
Sure.
from that experience into like building your own business, right? Coming
Yeah.
to now Alza.
Mhm.
What are some of the what are some of the biggest takeaways that that you got from Pathrise? And then I think you had, was there something in between even before Alza, or was it just Pathrise to Alza?
It was Pathrise to Alza.
Okay.
In terms of a takeaway, I'd say, and I'm trying to think of positives versus negatives, but negatives are always easy to come up with a little bit.
Sure.
I
Lessons learned, sure.
whatever. Yeah, let's keep it. Let's keep it. But I think the big thing was seeing firsthand of like what not to do at scale or otherwise, right? So much of, or maybe it's different now. It's been years, so I wouldn't want to like speak ill of the worst place ever. But it's one of those things where getting advice or giving advice, and kind of really experiences from internal and external level of just kind of like seeing this whole thing unfold. You've got really young people who maybe are good at their jobs,
Right.
but they're young, right? Like
Yeah.
a lot of the coaches that were there, their experiences were like, oh, I spent a year as a career counselor at a community college or like another college or another, like I took a certificate program. Or very rarely do we have people in there that are like 10 years in HR plus.
Right.
Like I run my own business, right? So you had a collective of people that I think on average were like 26 years old, which means they were in college 4 years before that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. One. Number two, with the generalized advice of essentially, and this is not just Pathrise as a business, but it's just, I think, career-wise across the board on LinkedIn and TikTok is a whole other animal of just like the hell are people talking about half the time. This narrative and this emphasis, and I tell this to clients and prospects that I work with, and it's like, for example, like apply. I don't know if you remember this. It was like apply to 50 jobs a week. Apply to 70 jobs a week. And I'm like, where's a technical PM going to find 70 jobs a week, especially during the pandemic?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like,
Or even if you find it, it's like that's like it's just like
right.
It's just draining, right? Like what's you're not getting much out of it, right? Like you just
apply.
applying. Yeah.
I remember this specifically. A manager who I won't name her, but she said something like, well, and this is feedback to someone else in like a group meeting that we were having because we had those every day for some reason. Right, like, but it was like, oh, like what's, and like, oh, my client's not hitting the numbers we're setting or something in terms of application. Okay, they're like, but okay, let's bump it up then. I'm like, how does that make sense? If they can't hit 40, aim for 70, right?
That doesn't make sense to me.
70 a week, because even if they don't hit 70, they'll get that much closer to 40. And like, if they can't do them, it's like trying to tell somebody like you need to run a mile, and they're like, I can only do 3 blocks because I'm out of shape. Run 2 miles.
Yeah.
So like I just sat there and I'm like, this is how this company is built at this point. And you look at some of and again, people have different success rates that they're promoting.
Sure.
But like from being an internal coach, from working with people like yourself, and you are a success case in that sense.
Even
people that succeeded, funny enough, I can't tell how many people came back to me, and really that's what inspired me to start Alza, would come back and be like, wait a minute, I got a job, but now I got to pay back $18,000. I got to pay back whatever the kind of ambiguous percentage rates were given in terms
of. It was high. Yeah.
So
they gave you like 2 options. They gave you like pay up front or after you get a job, and then it was a lot more for percentage. Luckily, it was still a lot of money, but luckily I chose the upfront one, which is a little bit better.
Still, right?
It's still a lot.
Right, and then it got worse and worse, and I saw it firsthand to become like quite contentious with people. It was like, oh no, but that was your lead, and we helped you with your resume, so now you owe us 8,000. You owe us 11. Like at a point, there was a breaking point for me where I was like, all right, I'm out of here. I had a client who had gone through probably the most difficult year, and like everybody during COVID, but they were also going through a transition.
Yeah.
They were in that kind of process. They were going through divorce. They were in a custody battle. They were facing homelessness because they were losing their home at the same time. They're working the graveyard shift at Amazon for $13.50 an hour. And this person expects to apply 50 jobs and do this and do that and do it. And like funny enough, they showed up to every single meeting. For 10 months, this person could not get traction. And I got a message from my direct supervisor, and it was like, what's going on with them? Whatever, where are they? Where do they want to make sure we like essentially cut dead weight? And I said, well, actually, funny enough, they're now in the second round, which they were. Funny enough, they started picking the speed up at the kind of later end of that agreement because with Pathrise, it was 12 months to get a job. So they're month 10. And what I got back from them was, yeah, no, like, why don't we just cut this person loose? Because if we do, we can say they breached their end of the contract of like not upholding the things we're setting for them. and I think we can collect like, I forget what the numbers were, but it was like $500 per month or per week, or something insane. I think it totaled like $11,000 that this person would now have to pay them. And that to me is so unjust and so unfair. And I said to her, I was like, there's no like, I know for a fact this guy doesn't have 11 grand. I said, what happens if someone can't pay?
Yeah.
Oh, we just sent collections after them. Like, it was nothing. Like, and to me, I don't know, man. You know what I mean? Like, you'd ruin someone's life, right? Or let's say, like, maybe it's dramatic, but like, why would you put someone through that, right? Who, like,
Right.
So I just, I was like, maybe there's a better way around this.
So this is where it led you to start your own company as the CEO. You like, so tell me about, like, so obviously that inspired you or spurred you to start your own company.
Yeah.
But what does that look like from the beginning stages? So I guess it's been like 2 or 3 years since you've done Alza, or you've been CEO at Alza.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that journey look like? Starting from day one to, just give me like a high level
stuff. A lot of crying. A lot of no. Sometimes. No, man, entrepreneurship is hard, right? Especially one man for a lot of people. No matter what Justin Welsh tells you, it takes a long time. So, it was interesting. I was inspired by, obviously, that the story I just shared, and I knew, like, the inefficiencies and deficiencies of a place that was much, much larger than me with a lot more resources. But I feel like that's where the biggest opportunity was, to not try to match them, but just create something that fulfilled me in a sense personally, but also helped people along the way in a way that was manageable. So early days, I mean, no website, no testimonial, nothing, no case study, like like anything else. And I remember started just cold pitching people and being like, I work here. And funny enough, a lot of people, I was posting, if you remember, a lot of content back then as well. So people found me just through LinkedIn. My entire 18 months, initial 18 months run of the business was built through referrals, and it was built through organic content through LinkedIn.
And through like through posting and inbound and outbound DMs.
Funny enough, most of it, 90% of the time, was inbound.
That's great.
I don't think I'm really good at outbound personally. Even to this day, I'm just like I feel like I'm awkward with it. But inbound was great. If you're like, I saw your comment, I saw your post, I saw your thing. Oh, hey. And like, the more you post, the more
you get more reach. Yeah.
Yeah. And I started getting invited to like run some workshops and things like that, which is really interesting. Some podcasts, which you're doing now, which is amazing.
There you go.
No, because I've hit pause on content, but that was really the first 18 months, and to be transparent, did well enough to the point where, like, my wife and I found out that we're expecting our boy, who's now 1, which is incredible, and we could move out of New York City, and we bought a house. And for the last year, I essentially took a sabbatical and just focused on being dad, which was the best decision ever. And I'm like that every day still with him, right? I'm with him until noon, and I drop on and do some work, whatever. So really now I'm at a point, like, year 2 really was more of a hiatus. I built, I did kind of one-offs in terms of like some of the coaching, but it was never really like a full program, very sparingly, because I also didn't have time with a 3-month-old who never friggin' sleeps. I also aged 20 years, right? I didn't really have the bandwidth mentally to handle a lot. But we hit pause on it, and it was like, where do we want to take this thing moving forward into next year? And now that he's 1, and we're expecting our second in October, it was a baby girl. So it's about to get busy. The idea here now that we're in year 3, if you will, it's about scale. That's the big focus, while not compromising on quality. So the way I'm seeing it, especially with this market, is that we maybe do a bit of a move away from high ticket the way that it was, doing something that is still hands-on, but potentially running more of like a membership of sorts, where you have the aspects and elements of like resources and modules and things like that, but also really heavily being available for people in real time. Reason for that is that I don't just create courses and shoot them out, which I think we talked about the other night, was the fact that, like, I literally got feedback from job seekers who were like, why would I want a course for 6 hours when I can just ask you a question? Right. So it's been a real kind of like, not challenge much, but a bit of an exercise, I would say, to figure out blend and try to promote something seamlessly. So I'm really excited because we've got now a really good mix of 2, and we're figuring out like pricing and really what works in the model. And then I guess I'll be back on LinkedIn pretty soon trying to push that up. Scale is really everything to me at this point, and trying to almost not remove myself from the business, but at least not be the bottleneck for it.
I see. So just to step through this, so like you've been for your business primarily or previously you've been high ticket, which is like one-on-one coaching, is that right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And then moving now to kind of like a cohort, maybe like a month or 3 month
Absolutely.
type
Yeah.
of
The way we're
type
thinking it is
of deal.
to potentially cohort, right?
Mhm.
Or a community, right? People join. And then in that is the kind of upsell of like, if you want more one-on-one, here's where it's at. If you want more one, right? But not doing it fully where it's like, you don't have to pay thousands, right? It's just, there's a creator, which I really admire. I've learned to really look at some of the things he's done. Jesus. My goodness. What, I'm tired. My God, what the hell? I was talking to him today. Jacob Pigs.
Oh yeah, you mentioned him before. Yeah, I just recently started following him. He's great.
It's great, right? He talks about this thing called selling by proximity, where you have people at a very basic starting point, which doesn't break the bank for them, and eventually it's like the closer they get to the source, right, the more levels go up in terms of revenue and whatever they have to invest in. So it's anything that we're trying out. But I also noticed in terms of a trend of how people operate through this stuff, like Pathrise was, you have 12 months to find a job, which I think is just ass backwards inherently as marketing. And also like, what job seeker wants to be with you for 12 months? I don't.
That's a long time.
Like, we didn't succeed for 12 months. Oops. So, really, I think people, especially a time like this, like they want execution, they want speed, they want pragmatism, they want something that doesn't break the bank, but also they have high value. And so that's really the main focus of how I'm trying to build it now. And we're looking at month-to-month, 3-month packages, 6-month packages maximum. Pricing points in between that differ, but yeah, that's pretty much
that makes sense. So talking about like this job market, right? So so generally you focus on tech professionals, right? Like sorry, who's your like ideal client? Like it's, I think I generally know what it is, but just to say it to anybody who watches, who are you targeting?
So primarily it's been product professionals for a long time. It's where I started, right? And then I kind of just took off from there. But I expanded kind of into like 7 other tracks as well, if not more now, really. So it's kind of the big shift was going from product to then looking at things like program managers, then project, and people in ops quite heavily. Customer success has become the last couple of months quite a bit. Strategy roles somewhat. Small percentages are like tech sales, account management, those kind of roles like BD, which we don't really touch that much. But it's like the non-technical stuff. What I haven't really touched on yet at all, at least in this space, because I just haven't had the experience around it, is the I guess some engineering, right? But like if we're looking really purely like machine learning, for example, like that's not right that I'm looking at, or like cybersecurity, or it's like it's been very far and few in between around that. Maybe it's the marketing, maybe it's the messaging, maybe it's just kind of like who the core customers are and who they're referring. But I would say it's more so the kind of non-technical in tech roles that we usually look at and help with.
I see. So as you've said, in terms of this market right now, right? Like it's the employer's market, and just because how it is, ebbs and flows. Previously, it was the employee market in terms of quiet hiring, or I think, now it's like quiet firing. But
and great resignation or something. Yeah.
Oh yeah, whatever it was, and so I mean, because we only have a few minutes left, what would you advise, like, these non-technical people trying to get these corporate jobs, these tech, I guess primarily in tech. What are some nuggets that you can provide to them?
Absolutely. Well, it depends where people are, right? So if someone's in tech and they've been laid off or whatever it is. One thing that is a hill I'll always die on is the fact that like resumes do not lead to jobs, conversations do. So really prioritizing 70%, 60%, whatever you're going to call it, large portion of your day or your week or your month in terms of outreach and networking, pushing as much FaceTime as possible, like this in real time, to pre-sell yourself before you get to the core elements of a full formalized interview. The idea is that like if you have 2, 3, 4 people from the same team, from the same company, from the same department, and this is not, by the way, to say go to the recruiter, go to the hiring manager immediately. It's what everybody does. Don't do it because everyone else does it, right? We can talk forever on like nuances around messaging, emails, and what not to do, but we don't have time for that. So I would say just look at potentially people who are adjacent to the seat that you want to sit in, right? Meaning if you're, let's say, a technical PM, who is around you? Marketers, engineers, data, salespeople, whatever it is. They're all fair game to give you insight and data on the culture, the compensation, the structure, who's hiring, when they're hiring, because they're all there, right?
Yeah.
The thing about it is you can literally take those conversations, package them again, and say, hey, by the way, Mr. Hiring Manager or Miss Hiring Manager, whatever. I've spoken to Albano, I've spoken to Zach, I've spoken to Kevin, right? And here's what they share about the company, right? We'd love to just have 20 minutes to talk with you. I'm exploring different opportunities now. I love what you guys are building. A couple ideas around, like, it's all about quite literally creating yourself or thinking of yourself as a product, market in which you need to understand how to sell. If you can't do that, then you will rely on pushing out 600 resumes. I don't care if AI does it. It is not effective right now.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't think it was ever effective.
It's
Yeah.
It's like it's people are like, oh, I use this thing and it applied to 300 jobs for me. Like, great, how many interviews? One. Good luck, right? Or zero, or whatever. Also, last bit on that. That's if you're existing in PMs, and it's the fundamentals are the same if you're trying to break into it. I think right now it is super difficult to break into. I'm sorry, into tech. I said PM. It's so difficult to break into tech because people already are laid off and can't get back in.
Yeah.
Largely. If you're trying to come in with no experience but trying to get into it, like, it's gonna be such an uphill battle. But one thing I do see if anyone's watching this that is like looking to break into tech for the first time, and I'm in a group where I see this a lot. And I'm like, oh my God, the emphasis on take the certification, do this boot camp, get this license, start a help desk, I think is absolute. Can I curse here or no?
Let's not. Let's not.
BS. It's just one of these narratives that are built up over time where people think like, if I take that course, like, I'll get a job. If I take a certification, I'll get a job. And you just don't do that, right? Best example I can give you, and no shade to them, but General Assembly, right, charges $15,000 for somebody to go in and take a 3-month, whatever, 40-hour week commitment, whatever. And then they have variances around like doing it at home or whatever. But the core element of those, you can't even work because you're dedicated to this thing to become a cybersecurity engineer or whatever it is. And you are quite literally learning theory. I think one of the biggest reviews that you can look at are on bootcamp, a lot of them, not just that, but they're massive. You look at the reviews and it's like, yeah, it was fine. The instructor was great or wasn't. I still don't know, like, I've never really built a product. So how do I get into product management? Because the experience is now lacking. So I just spent 15 grand to learn. That to me just enrages me, dude, because I'm like, you're getting a murder, right? To spend 15. Right. So imagine being a parent, imagine someone has to commute to, let's say, New York offices, right? To sit there for 3 hours, get back in your car, pay for parking, drive through traffic, get home, and hope to God that in 3 months you get a job.
Yeah.
Like, there's something better. And that something better is Alza. No, it's not an infomercial, but still.
It's good.
Obviously. There's just a lot of I'll stop my rant, I promise. But like, there's just a lot of bad quality services and products out there. There's a lot of false promises. There's a lot of. I had a woman who I spoke to the other week. She had spent $10,000 on a product career coach. 10 grand, man. That's
to be a product manager.
One to like get to the next level.
Oh, I see.
Okay. And I said, oh my God, that's very expensive. That's like a used Toyota Camry somewhere. Like, I don't even. Yeah, I said, oh, we're talking, right? So I already know that it didn't work.
Yeah.
Right? Sales call. Like, she wouldn't take it if she was working. And she was, yeah, so I paid in threes and I spent the first month just doing breathing and visualization exercises. 3K to breathe. I can breathe on my own. Like, so again, going back to like what people can really do is the more FaceTime, the more top of mind you are with people, specifically targeted, and then don't treat people like they're just a dartboard you need to like throw against all day long. But like, truly, I know it sounds canned, but like, focusing on the relationship, because again, the more people know your name, the more people know your face, the more you market in a sense, and the more you test your pitch and everything else, the faster you'll get the feedback on like what works, what doesn't work, where you need to pivot, what you need to do next. People are everything, and good luck. Like, there's a billion of them on LinkedIn, so like, there's a shortage of people you can talk to. But again, I think people are very lost in the sauce of like, I got to apply and I don't have a certification. Should I go to school again? Like, should I get a master's degree? I'm like, no one in tech cares. No one. Right. There's people with no college degrees. Biggest companies in the world hire with no college degrees. So anyway.
Yeah. His times have changed, and it's funny, like with the human element, even with AI, is here. It seems like for like getting work, you know, the human element is even more important. And it's not even that much different from like being a solopreneur to, you know, trying to sell your services. You still need a lot of human contact. And then if you want to get a job from, you know, as a corporate worker, you still have to have a lot of touch points, have a lot of engagement with people, you know, because likely if you just, yeah, as you said, that even if somebody sees your resume once and they have like a brief connection or a brief contact with you, that's probably not even enough. You need to have like continual contact. And so
how many resumes are being sent to this person, right? And even if you have a resume, that's why I just don't like. I think obviously resume is part of this process and you can't avoid it. So you need to have something that's great and it's for ATS and whatever. But even ATS, like a huge myth is like, oh, the ATS system like didn't let me through. At the end of the day, when you get a rejection, let's say, and it depends, like a job might be closed, there's variables. But what I mean at its core is like, it's a person. I used to be that person. I used to get these resumes, right? Like it's a person who makes a decision whether it's an error or not. So you don't optimize for an ATS blindly because you found a career TikTok guy that says like, if you make all the words white at the bottom of the page, disappear, but also like, it's the person that matters, right? I'll say this a lot, and I say it a lot in the program and when I coach people and some of the resources. It's the job is to go from 6 seconds of attention to 60 seconds. It's not to go, I have the perfect resume that gets me a job. It's I have a resume that gets me a conversation, at least piques interest, just minimally. Because if it does that, then it's I should actually give this person a call. I should send a message because I'm curious about questions X, Y, and Z. That's it. If you can invoke a question, guess what happens? The next action has to be followed up by them taking it and saying, I need to talk to you about this. I have a question about that. I found your LinkedIn profile. It's really interesting. Like your content. Boom, 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 boom. Right.
That's awesome.
Small pockets that can like serve you, but not be the thing that sells you.
Right. I love that 6 seconds to 60 seconds. And we are over time, but to just have any closing thoughts, anything you want to tell the audience, you know, maybe whatever you want to say, pitch to come to Alza, whatever you want to say, you know.
I'm happy to entertain any and all conversations. If people can find me on LinkedIn, right? Albano Gega. I think I'm the only one that's there, probably, maybe not. Okay. It's, you know, if someone is looking for an opportunity right now, a lot of people are laid off. Again, we are willing to just work with people and you know, as needed. It's a privately held company. There's no investors. There will be any investors. Like I don't really care about that kind of life in terms of VC funding, this or that. We're trying to build a real business that sustains us, but also really just affects people the right way. And my biggest like measure of success is in how much money you can help negotiate, which to date is like 12.4 million for people. But it's a matter of like, are they walking away happy with what they've done? And are they walking away not in 12 months, but in 3 with potentially an offer in hand, or at least setting up in the process to get an offer soon after. So if there is someone who appreciates a very human element around it, similar to yourself when we work together, but they're looking to obviously work very strategically and pragmatically and work hard for a couple of weeks, you know, we can really help move the needle for a lot of people rather quickly.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time, Albano. Always a pleasure. And thank you for coming on. And
anytime.
That's it. So we'll end the call. And thank you.
Thanks so much, man. Talk soon.